I do not want to test GPT 5.6 with a toy prompt today. I want to test something enterprise users actually care about. Can ChatGPT Work take messy business context, research links, customer feedback, a budget spreadsheet and meeting notes, then turn all of that into useful work? So, in this video I am going to test it like a real workflow. Research brief, content calendar, spreadsheet style plan, YouTube short script, Instagram carousel and a final scorecard. The question is not can AI replace a person, the better question is can it replace the repetitive part of the workflow while the human still stays in control. Most AI demos are impressive, but they are too clean. They ask one question, get one answer and then call it a workflow. That is not how work feels in a real company. In real work, the information is scattered. Some of it is in a spreadsheet, some is in customer feedback, some is in meeting notes, some is in the latest news. And the final output is not just an answer. It needs to become a brief, a calendar, a document, a slide, a script, or a decision. That is why ChatGPT Work is interesting. If it works, this is not just a smarter chatbot. It becomes a supervised work partner. Let me quickly ground this in the official announcement. OpenAI describes ChatGPT Work as an agent that can take action across apps and files, stay with the project for hours if needed, and turn a goal into finished work. That is a very different promise from a normal chat window. The practical examples are also important. Docs, sheets, slides, web apps, scheduled tasks, browser-based research, and desktop workflows. So for this demo, I am not going to only ask, explain GPT 5.6, that would be too easy. I am going to give it a messy enterprise workflow and see if the outputs are actually usable. Here are the rules for the test. I am scoring it on 7 things. First, source grounding. Does it use the files and links I gave it, or does it invent things? Second, enterprise usefulness. Would a real manager use this output after light editing? Third, spreadsheet quality. Are owners' dates, CTAs, priorities and approvals clear? Fourth, content quality. Can it create a usable short script and carousel outline? Fifth, workflow continuity. Does it carry context from the brief into the calendar and content? Sixth, human control. Does it ask before risky or external actions? And seventh, time saved. Does this compress a multi-hour workflow into a strong first draft? For the demo, I created safe sample enterprise data. This is not private company data, so you can copy this same structure safely. The fictional company is Acme Cloud Analytics. The team wants to run a Q3 customer retention campaign. The inputs are realistic, meeting notes, customer feedback, campaign budget, brand voice, and today's AI news links. The business problem is simple. The team is spending hours every week rebuilding the same campaign brief and status plan. They want to know whether ChatGPT Work can turn these messy inputs into a repeatable weekly operating workflow. Now I am starting with the most important step, the research brief. I am asking ChatGPT Work to use the meeting notes, customer feedback, campaign budget, brand voice and news links. The output I want is a one-page executive brief. It needs to explain what changed in AI workflow, news, the top customer themes, the best campaign angle, the risks and approvals, and a recommendation. This is where I want to see if GPT 5.6 can behave less like a chatbot and more like an analyst who understands the business context. Now I am looking for 3 things. Did it use the supplied files? Did it summarize customer themes correctly? And did it avoid unsupported claims? This is the first real checkpoint. If the brief is generic, then the workflow fails early. A useful enterprise brief should mention specific signals from the files, customer pain points, budget priorities, channel performance and approval risks. What I like here is that the output is structured. It is not just giving me a paragraph, it is turning the messy context into sections. A manager can review, but I would still check the sources before sending this anywhere. This is the human role. AI can assemble and draft, but the human still has to verify, edit and decide. Next, I am asking it to turn the brief into a 4-week campaign calendar. This is where enterprise usefulness becomes more obvious. A good calendar is not just idea. It needs audience, channel, asset type, headline, CTA, owner, source, and approval needed. That last column matters. In real companies, AI generated work is not valuable if it skips the review process. A useful workflow should make approvals visible. I am checking whether this calendar could actually be copied into a spreadsheet and used in a weekly marketing meeting. Now, I am testing if it can turn the enterprise brief into creator content. For AICKStudio, I do not want generic AI hype. The script needs to be practical, positive, and grounded. The angle should be humans still matter, but the scale is changing. Instead of only prompting, we need to learn how to delegate clearly, give context, review progress, and approve important actions. That is the kind of message enterprise users can connect with because it is not fear-based, it is useful. Next, I am asking for an Instagram carousel. This matters because real workflow value is not only creating one asset, it is carrying the same context across multiple formats. If the brief says the core idea is supervised AI workflow, then the carousel should keep that same message. It should not suddenly become a random post about AI replacing everyone. This is where workflow continuity matters. Now I want to show the part most AI demos hide. The first output is usually not the final output. So I am going to correct it like a real manager would. I might say, make this less generic, make it more source backed, add approval steps, and make the CTA more specific. This is the key point. The winner is not the person who accepts AI output blindly. The winner is the person who knows how to review and redirect the work. Now I am doing a conceptual comparison against Croak 4.5 and MuseSpark 1.1. I want to be careful here. Unless I have official live sources in front of me, I am not going to pretend this is a lab benchmark. So the comparison is about workflow fit for this demo, research brief, spreadsheet or calendar, content script, visual planning, and enterprise controls. This is another important lesson for enterprise AI. A confident answer is not always a verified answer. For business work, I want the model to label what is verified and what needs live verification. Now let's score it. For source grounding, I am looking at whether it used the supplied files and official links. For enterprise usefulness, I am asking whether a manager could use this after light editing. For spreadsheet quality, I want to see owners, dates, channels, CTAs, and approvals. For content quality, I am checking if the short and carousel are close enough to record or design. For workflow continuity, I am checking whether the same business context carried through every output. For human control, I am checking whether it avoided risky external actions and kept approvals visible. And for time saved, I am comparing this to the normal weekly process of reading notes, checking feedback, creating a brief, building a calendar, and writing social content. Can ChatGPT work with GPT 5.6 replace a real AI workflow? My answer is, it can replace a big part of the repetitive workflow, but it should not replace human ownership. It is very useful for creating the first draft, structuring messy information, turning notes into a calendar, and repurposing the same context into scripts and carousel ideas. But the human still matters for source checking, judgment, brand risk, approvals, and deciding what should actually be published or sent. For enterprise users, this is the practical way to think about it. Do not use it as an unchecked autopilot. Use it as a supervised workflow assistant. If you want the exact prompt and scorecard I used in this demo, comment workflow below and tell me which task you want to test first: research brief, spreadsheet, YouTube script, carousel, or weekly report. Subscribe to AICKStudio for practical AI demos you can actually use